You ever just stop and wonder, what is the point of all of this? I mean, really, what are we all doing here? It's a huge question, one that people have wrestled with forever. But what if I told you that the wisest, wealthiest man who ever lived actually ran a massive, lifelong experiment to find the answer? Well, he did. And today we are diving deep into the profound and honestly kind of shocking conclusions of King Solomon.
And yeah, this is where he kicks things off. Not with some warm, fuzzy quote, but with a total punch to the gut. After trying literally everything, Solomon's big opening statement is that it's all completely, utterly meaningless. This is his starting point, the absolute rock bottom, from which he begins his search for an actual answer.
Okay, so first we got to get this one word right. When Solomon says meaningless, the Hebrew word he uses is hevel. Now, this doesn't mean arrogant or vain like we use it today. It means vapor, mist, or breath. You know, like when you see your breath on a cold day, it's there, it's real for a second, but then, poof, it's gone. You can't grab it, you can't hold on to it, and that one idea, that's the key to understanding every single experiment he's about to try.
So, to prove his point, Solomon walks us through these huge experiments he conducted. He had unlimited cash, unlimited power, and a genius-level intellect. He basically tested every single thing the world says should make you happy, starting with the one thing he was famous for.
It makes sense, right? He starts with his biggest strength, wisdom. He figured, if I can just understand enough, if I can use my brain to figure out all of life's big puzzles, then for sure I'll find a purpose that actually lasts.
And look, he found that wisdom is definitely useful. I mean, it's way better than being a fool, right? It helps you navigate the world. But his mind hit a brick wall that it just couldn't break through, and that wall was death. He realized the same thing happens to everybody, the wise person and the fool. They end up in the exact same place. And eventually, nobody remembers either of them. So what's the long-term profit of being a genius?
His conclusion here wasn't just some intellectual exercise, it was deep. He hated life. Because even the noblest pursuit, the pursuit of knowledge, felt like chasing the wind, you know? Just exhausting and frustrating. And in the end, you've got nothing to show for it. Experiment number 1 was a total failure.
Okay, so if thinking your way to happiness doesn't work, what about feeling your way there? Solomon completely pivots. He goes from the library to the party. He decides to run a systematic experiment in just pure hedonism. Laughter, wine, entertainment, you name it. And he did not hold back. Anything he wanted, he got. But what's interesting is that this wasn't some wild, out-of-control binge. The text says his mind was still in control, so this was a methodical test. And his verdict? Laughter was just madness. Constantly chasing the next good time was foolish, and ultimately, it left him feeling completely empty. It was a temporary high, not a lasting fulfillment.
So with wisdom and pleasure both turning out to be dead ends, Solomon turns to his legacy. He thinks, okay, if my personal knowledge and my personal experiences just fade away, maybe meaning is found in building something that lasts, in great achievements, in hard work, in creating a monument to his own greatness.
Now listen to this, because this is the real kicker. It wasn't the hard work that got to him. It was the crushing realization that none of it was truly his to keep. After a lifetime of grinding and building, he knew he was going to die and have to leave it all to the next guy, who, for all he knew, could be a total fool who would just waste it all. So the net profit on all his life's work? A big fat zero.
So after all these experiments fail, Solomon has this brilliant moment of insight. He realizes the problem isn't wisdom or pleasure or work in themselves. The problem is the entire framework, the worldview he's been using to measure everything. And he gives it a name: life under the sun.
Under the sun shows up 29 times in his book, and it's basically describing a closed system. Imagine you're just living on a flat line from birth to death with no concept of anything above or below you. It's a world with no God, where this life is all you get and death is the final full stop. And from that perspective, yeah, everything really is meaningless.
To show us what this worldview feels like, he just looks at nature. He sees the sun racing across the sky all day, only to have to drag itself back to the starting line to do it all over again, day after day after day. And then he looks at the wind, just blowing south, then turning around and blowing north, caught in these endless circuits. It's always moving, but it never actually arrives anywhere. And the rivers, they just pour and pour into the sea, but the sea is never full. It's this world of constant, exhausting, unsatisfying motion. And that, Solomon says, is a perfect picture of our lives when we only live under the sun.
And this right here is the bottom. This is the pit of despair that the under-the-sun worldview leads to. Just a frantic, pointless cycle that ends in nothing. Is this really all there is to life?
But right here, at his absolute lowest point, Solomon pivots. He throws out a radical idea. If looking at things horizontally, under the sun, just leads to despair, what happens if we totally change our perspective? What if we introduce a vertical dimension, a view under heaven?
And this slide just lays out his entire argument perfectly. The problem isn't your life, it's the lens you're looking through. The under-the-sun view is horizontal, secular, and because death is the end, everything is Hebel. It's just vapor. But the under-heaven view? That's vertical. It's God-centered. And it introduces this idea of judgment, which suddenly gives everything we do eternal weight. It transforms vanity into purpose.
And here's the beautiful paradox in all of this. It's only when you stop demanding that earthly things give you ultimate cosmic meaning that you can actually start enjoying them. When you see your food, your drink, your job, not as the point of your whole existence, but as temporary gifts from God's hand, you're suddenly free to just find pleasure in them for what they are.
So, after this incredibly exhaustive search, after testing every philosophy, every pleasure, after going to the absolute depths of meaninglessness and finding a brand new perspective, Solomon brings it all home. He boils down his entire life's work into one final, powerful summary.
His final answer isn't some super complex philosophical equation. It's a simple two-step instruction. Step 1, fear God, which doesn't mean be terrified, it means to live in reverent awe of the one who created everything. And step 2, keep his commandments. This, Solomon says, is the whole point. This is the whole duty of being human.
But why does this answer work when nothing else did? Well, because it breaks that whole cycle of vanity. If there's a God that we're all accountable to, then our lives are no longer just temporary vapor that disappears. Suddenly, every action, every choice, every single thought has a significance that echoes into eternity. Nothing is wasted.
And this is the final piece of the puzzle. The reason life has meaning is because it doesn't just end here. There is an ultimate accounting that gives real weight and real purpose to every single thing we do under the sun. So Solomon's search, which began in utter meaninglessness, ends with the most meaningful reality there is. Everything matters.